Welcome everyone. My name is Jordi Descartes, and it's a pleasure to introduce a new webinar from our ClearPix consultants. Today, we will start a new series of 3 episodes about CI/CD for Power BI with Azure Devops and Microsoft Fabric. I will start with a quick introduction about ClearPix and hand over to my colleague Miguel to present the content of today's session. ClearPix is a consulting company headquartered in Barcelona and founded in the year 2000, and we join our efforts as part of the Sinver Group with 5 other leading companies across Europe to become the largest full-service data and analytics consultancy group in Europe, with over 500 consultants in our offices distributed in Spain, Germany, UK, Switzerland, Croatia, Middle East, and US. We are experts in everything related to data, supporting corporations across multiple verticals, with high-quality deliverables and honest and transparent partnership with our customers that usually make us proud of the length of our engagements. We are organized around 5 practice areas: a modern business intelligence team working on data ingestion into data platforms, a data modeling layer based on business requirements and priorities, and data visualization components through the multiple tools available on the market. Having skilled professionals consultants working with Microsoft technology for the last 20 years, we've gone together through all the journey to the cloud with Azure, Synapse, and now Fabric. Our big data and cloud practice will handle the public cloud deployments on AWS, Google, or Azure architectures, as well as big data deployments with Cloudera and the Hadoop ecosystem, as well as projects where real-time and data streaming is required with tools like Nifi. An excellent team of combined data engineers and data scientist profiles are grouped in our advanced analytics practice, being able to help on the advanced analytics use cases analysis and implementations, with the tools available in the major data platforms like Azure ML, AWS SageMaker, or other tools like NIME or DataEco. Our team of full-stack engineers are able to develop web and mobile applications related to data projects, either to ingest or create API services to exchange data, embed the visual content into corporate tools or frameworks, or developing tailored solutions to the business requirements to access the information, like our executive analytics solution, Observation Deck, that I strongly recommend you check in our website. If the challenge is on the data quality, strategy, and data governance, we are also experts with the leading technologies in that space to support your initiatives and ensure a success of this key project in today's data world. All of us available to help you achieving your business goals and objectives, making better decisions by having access to trustful and meaningful data on your fingertips. We are proud of our partnership with Microsoft, being solutions partners for data and AI, and Azure specializations with a large pool of certified consultants across the different Azure Stacks tools. Since Fabric announcement a year ago, our team has been working on it with already some customer implementations and assessing the benefits that could be leveraged by our customers. With that, it's my pleasure to hand over the session to Miguel, consultant in our Azure and Power BI team. The floor is yours, Miguel.
Okay, thank you, Jordi. And as explained, during these episodes, we will cover the lifecycle of a CI/CD process. We will see from the development point of view how a developer can implement a feature or content and save it in its local workspace. But also we will see how he can work in a collaborative way, applying source control practices in order to track all the changes made to the project. Also, we will cover the deployment part, where we will see how to deploy our content into one environment or in another, depending on the case. Here you can see an schema of the CI/CD process. And you can see from the top part that we have the developers working on a collaborative way, uploading their changes to a remote repository hosted by Git, where the version control practices will be done, and so the changes will be tracked. Then we will see how the validation pipelines are implemented to test and validate the content. We will also see the continuous integration pipeline that will prepare the content before being published. And we will finally cover the continuous deployment pipeline that will deploy the content into one environment or another. Here you can see what we will cover in the different episodes. During this first episode, we will cover the development in a collaborative way and applying source control practices. And in the second episode, we will see the validation pipeline and the continuous integration pipeline. And in the last episode, we will see the deployment part. So as said, during this first episode, we will cover the development in a collaborative way, applying source control practices. So source control is the practice of tracking and managing changes made to any software code, or in our case, to our Power BI reports or semantic models. It is really important for organizations, not only because it allows us to have multiple contributors working on the same project at the same time, but also because it allows us to combine their work in a proper way, maintaining the consistency and reliability of the project. Moreover, it also keeps a history of the changes made in case of any change needs to be undone. So before the introduction of the PBIP format in July 2023, we could not fully collaborate within our Power BI files. We have some workarounds, like having a shared workspace where the different developers can have access to the files, but we should take some shortcomings. First, there is a communication challenge, as when you have multiple contributors working on the same project simultaneously, communication and coordination are essential in order to avoid conflicts and maintain the project integrity. Also, there can appear some version control issues, as duplicating the files or creating multiple versions can lead to confusion and even information loss. Here you can see the differences between the classic PBIX format for saving the files and the new PBIP format, which reflects more content of our files. And this new way of saving the files that reflects more content is what allows us to track the change made to them and so apply the source control practices. Here you see an schema on how we will work, where we will have our report in our local working directory, and then we will have a remote repository where the different developers will upload their changes and the work will be combined. Now we'll see the tools that we need for this implementation. We will use Microsoft Fabric as our data platform. We will need Visual Studio Code for managing our repositories. We will need the Azure Devops basic plan license for creating the projects inside the organizations. And we also recommend to install this Azure Devops extension in order to resolve the conflicts in Azure. And from the Power BI side, we need some preview options activated. We need the PBIP save option format. And we could also activate the TMDL format, that stands for Tabular Model Definition Language, which is just another way of saving the files with more detail. So now we will see the workflow and the use case that we will cover later on in the demo. We'll see that we have a report with some missing measures and a graph that is not working. And we will see how different developers collaborate in order to complete this report, and how these changes will be tracked, and how to resolve the conflicts at the time on combining the work of both developers. So each developer will implement their corresponding feature at the same time, but in different copies of the project. These copies or lines of development are called branches and are used in order to implement different features without affecting the complete project. Some good practices for this branch: it should have a descriptive name on what changes are going to be made there. It should come from an stable base to make sure that all last changes are made to the project. And the smaller the better. It's better to don't make a lot of changes in a branch. And here you have an schema where we have our main branch hosting the project with Azure Devops and Fabric. And we will see how the two developers create different branches to implement their features. And then we will see how these branches are merged or combined with the main branch. So at the time of merging or combining these branches, there could appear some errors or conflicts. And it is really important that we understand these errors, as we will need to manually resolve them. And here you have an example where Git is marking different conflicts that he found between branches, and we will see how we could either delete one of the parts of one branch in order to keep the other one, or we can delete the markers in order to keep the changes made in both branches. And now let's jump to the demo. So as we explained, for this demo, we will have this report that is missing two measures. And it also has this graph that is not working due to a missing relationship in the data model. So this is the data model that is feeding the report. And we have both of these files uploaded to a Fabric workspace. We have one workspace for the reports, and we have one workspace for the semantic models. These workspaces are linked or synchronized with a DevOps project. And we also made two different remote repositories, one for the semantic models and one for the reports. So now we will make as if a new developer comes and wants to retrieve the data from the remote repository into its local one. And for doing so, we will use the Visual Studio Code. We will clone in this folder the repository. And as we explained before, we will work in branches. All the developers will implement their features in their independent lines of development. And for creating them, we can go to this source control part on Visual Studio. And we will create a new branch from an unstable version that in this case will be the main of the project. This will be the branch for the developer one. And what we are going to do is to make another copy or to clone again the remote repository to make as if another developer is also working on the same project at the same time. And the same as before, we will create the branch at the beginning. So we will work on the independent branch. And now that we have this created, we can go and open the files as if we were the developer one. And what we are going to do here is to create the missing relationship. And we are also going to create a measure, one of the measures that is missing. Now we will have to refresh the data. Okay, and now that the data is refreshed, we are going to create the relationship that is missing, which will be with this calendar table. And we will also create one of the measures that we are missing in the report. Now we will save our changes. We will see from the Visual Studio Code of with the window related to the developer one that in this source control section we already have indicated which files have been modified. So we just write a message and we can commit our changes and publish our branch into the repository. Now what we are going to do now is we are going to go to the repository and we are going to create a merge request in order to combine the main branch with the change made by this developer one. We can see that we have no conflicts, so we can directly complete the merge, and we are also going to delete the branch when merging. So now that the merge has been done, what we need to do is to go to the Fabric workspace and to update the changes with the repository. And now with this updated, what we are going to do is we are going to simulate as we are the report developer. So we go to the remote repository and we, just like before, we clone or we retrieve the information from the remote repository into our local one. And in this case, we are going to work directly on the main branch because we want to show the changes just for the semantic model. But we will see how the report now will have the graph working as the relationship has been done. And we can also add one of the measures that we were missing. Okay, so here we have it. We've created before this measure, so now it appears. And with the relationship, now this graph is also working properly. So now what we are going to do is we are going to simulate that we are developer 2 for the semantic model, and we are going to add the missing measure. Now we will also need to refresh the data. Okay, and now that the data is refreshed, we can check that we won't have the changes made by the developer one, as we made the copy of the main branch before the developer one merged his changes. So we don't have the relationship or the measure created, but we are going to create the other one that it's missing. And just like before, we are going to save our changes. We don't need to upgrade here. And same as before, we go to the window of the Visual Studio Code related with this developer 2. We have the changes made here. We write a message here and we commit our changes and publish our branch. And again, we go to the Azure Devops organization, we go to the files, and we can see, or we should see, that we can create a new pull request from the developer. And well, we already have this pull created, and we can see that we have some conflicts. So we will have to manually resolve them. So we go, this area is given due to the extension that we recommended. And here we can see the differences between both files. Not sure what this failure is about, but we can go here and look for it. Okay, here we have the difference between this branch that I just added and the main branch that was in the repository. Here we have some change that I am not really sure what it is, but what I'm going to do is to delete all the main and keep what the developer 2 had. So I have to delete these conflict markers and the information of its branch. I also need to delete this. And then we go to, oh, this is another failure that I'm not really sure what it is, but same as before, we keep the changes for the developer 2. Let's see, what else do we have? And now we go to the other files, we save these changes. And in here, we have like the new measures. In this case, we want to keep both measures. This was the one that the main have, and this is the one that is raising a conflict now. But said in this case, we want to keep both measures, so we just delete these conflict markers. And now that we have fixed all the conflicts that appear, we can submit the merge. There is another error that I hadn't seen. Let's keep it like this. Let's delete it again. And let's go to the last failure. And as before, we keep the values for the second branch. Now that all the conflicts are solved, we can complete the merge. We're also deleting the branch. And now that the merge is completed, we need to go, just like before, to the Fabric workspace in order to have it synchronized. And with this, the report developer can now refresh the data that is being taken from the Fabric workspace, and we will have now the measure that we need, that we have just created, that we need to fulfill this report. And so the report would be completed. Okay, now to wrap up and conclude, first we have a recap of the steps that we need for these implementations. First, we will need a remote repository to save our Power BI files in the PBIP format. Then when a new developer arrives to the project, he can clone or retrieve the information from this remote repository into his local one. Then he will need to create a branch in order to implement his changes on it. After, he has to upload the branch to the remote repository and merge it with the main branch of the project. If any conflicts appear, it will be needed to resolve them. And once the conflicts are resolved and the merge is complete, we should update our Fabric workspace in order to have it synchronized with the remote repository. As conclusions, we can say that, well, first, we don't need to be big experts with Git in order to implement these source control practices in our projects. We can say that this accelerate and improve the delivery of the projects, as we enable to have more contributors working on the same files. We also conclude that it is stable and consistent delivery, thanks to the ability to track the changes during the content lifecycle. And we also think this is suitable and recommended for all size projects. Coming next, and as we said before, we have episode 2 with the automate and validation, validation and build pipelines. And in the last episode, we will see the deployment. So thank you very much and stay tuned for next episodes.